Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for coming in today. Appreciate all of you being here. My name is Nitch Jagannathan, and I'm the product lead for AWS Transform. And joining me today is Srinivas Singaraju. Please introduce yourself, Singaraju.
Hello, everyone. I'm Srini Singaraju with Idemia, focusing on technology transformation at Idemia.
Yeah, and joining me also is Rahul Chugh, and he's an SA in AWS. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Rahul Chugh. I am AI Acceleration SA, so I essentially help partners to accelerate migrations and modernization on AWS using AI and GenAI technologies.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. So today we are going to be talking about how our customers, Idemia, have used AWS Transform to break down the technical debt that they have built over 25 years. While we are walking through this journey, we'll also explain the new capabilities that we are introducing into AWS Transform for .NET as well. Okay? Just before we get into this, I want to get a show of hands from all of you. How many of you know about AWS Transform for .NET? This is our agentic AI service we launched. Okay, that's a few of you, and some of you are fairly new. So I'll kind of set the context a little bit, and then we can dive into some of the new capabilities that we have added. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, why does customer want to modernize their .NET applications, right? Like from Windows to Linux. And a lot of customers who have applications that are written in .NET framework, that are 20 plus years old, and a lot of these legacy applications can run only on Windows, and that is preventing customers from taking advantage of the new technologies and flexibility that is available to them by moving to Linux. If you move to Linux, you can run it on different instances, whether it is x86 or even Graviton instances. You can run them as containers, take advantage of the scalability in that sense, or you can run them as Lambdas, right? And just running it on Windows kind of prevents you from doing that. So that is one of the reasons why customers wants to move out of Windows ecosystem. But there are other advantages too. Some of the significant ones is definitely the operating cost reduction, because the licensing costs that they have to pay for the Windows licenses are no longer applicable. So they're able to save up to 40% on some applications, right? And just by moving to the latest versions of Windows, that number 1.5 to 2x, that's coming from Microsoft because of the complete performance upgrades across the entire stack. Right, like the SDKs, the libraries, all of those are improving. So just by moving from .NET Framework to .NET 8 or .NET 10, you are expecting to see up to 2x performance improvement. And finally, I think the point that I talked about is the scalability. Right, once you can run it on Linux and as a container, you have a world of options. You have a lot more options of how you want to scale, how you want to build new capabilities. All of those open up to you. So that's one of the reasons what we have seen is up to 70% of our customers who are running Windows on AWS today, they're increasingly adopting Linux for their Windows ecosystem of applications. All right? So that sounds great, right? But then what is preventing customers from actually transforming their applications? But it is not exactly straightforward as that, right? So for example, in order to port your legacy applications, you want to first analyze the code, identify incompatibilities that are there between the previous version and the current versions. And the longer the version, for example, it's framework 3.5 and you want to move to .NET 8, a lot of those libraries are stale. You need to find different libraries, different mechanisms of doing some of those things. And then you have to port the code and finally validate and deploy. Even though it is showing this as a single streamlined workflow, it is never that straightforward. Each one of this is a loop. And developers, as you know, you go make a change, and then all of a sudden there is 200 build errors, right? And then you have to go back and fix it. Then the libraries are wrong. So it just is a very cumbersome and undifferentiated heavy lifting for our customers, because they would rather want to spend this time on focusing on the core competencies of building new capabilities rather than trying and maintaining old code, which they may not fully understand because the folks who wrote this code no longer are there, or they have moved on to something else, right? So it requires collaboration across multiple organizations, and it just is very slow progress. And this is exactly where AWS Transform for .NET comes in. For folks who are not familiar with it, like this is the first agentic AI experience for transforming your .NET framework applications to .NET 8, and now we are supporting to .NET 10 at scale. So essentially, like if you have hundreds of applications, thousands of applications, we are supporting those, in an agentic workflow model where we are shifting the developer's role from that of an executor to a reviewer, right? Like so, it's a human in the loop reviewing of the code that is being transformed. And how we are able to do that? We have a .NET domain expert agent that we have built on our own, using open source projects and all of our learnings that we have done over many years. And we are using that as a mechanism for a unified web experience where customers can point to the repositories and we'll do all the transformation. And developers can review it before they deploy to their production environment. So just by doing that, right, customers can essentially offload some of the tedious tasks that I was talking about, and they can achieve acceleration of up to 4x. Then this is some of these numbers that we have seen by working with customers. We launched this service in preview in reInvent of last year, and we launched the service in general availability in May 15 of 2025. So in the last 6 months, customers have been playing around with it and transforming at scale. And they've been porting hundreds of applications, and they're boosting application performance, scalability, and things like that as well. So what has changed? Maybe I'll just touch upon what has changed from the GA to now. It's been 6 months, right? There are things that we have learned from talking to customers, understanding what capabilities that they want to go and build this product further. And so one of the first things that we have done is expanding support to .NET 10. And Microsoft has released a new .NET version, and customers now, they don't want just to go to 8, they want to go to 10. So we are supporting that. And more importantly, they want to support .NET Standard, because most of the customers with the large legacy, a real estate, estate portfolio, they would want to actually do it incrementally. So they don't want to break compatibilities with their .NET framework application section. And if you don't want to move everything in one go to .NET 8, and you want to keep some of the applications in standard, that allows you to actually do it in an incremental fashion. So the strangler pig pattern, in sense, right? So that's why we added support for .NET Standard as well. And more importantly, if you think of your .NET framework applications as a 3-layered cake, what we have done at GA was transforming the middle layer, the business logic, but customers couldn't get their UI ported. Most of the framework applications were written on web forms, and they didn't have an exact straightforward way to transform them. So what we have done now is we have enabled the same agentic workflow for transforming your web forms to Blazor. And this allows customers to transform a lot of these legacy applications in one go, right? And also, the entity framework and ADO, ORM support, essentially what happens is that if your code was written for database access in framework with entity or ADO.NET, we are able to port those corresponding changes to the .NET 8 as well. This is one of those things there, if we didn't do this, customers have to go manually make these changes. And with the agentic experience, customers are able to take advantage of that. And that is only the feature capabilities, right? But there is also the developers. We've been talking with a lot of developers, and one of the things that they have provided feedback to us is that they want to see that once the transformation begins, they want to be able to provide fine-grained inputs. They want to be able to customize it. They want to be able to nudge it in a specific direction. So to support that, what we have done is we have provided an editable transformation plan. So what is the transformation plan? Rahul will show a demo of how this works. But essentially, it's a high-level flow of all the steps that the agent is going to take to modernize your application portfolio. And customers will be able to say, OK, make this choice, go to this version instead of the other version. Those kind of changes, that recommendation is going to come there. And then also, they want to understand how much time it's going to take. Rather than being a black box, be more transparent. Give me more feedback on exactly how long you're taking, which build error are you stuck on. Those kind of details, we are now providing those to customers as well. And also, finally, they want to be able to use, a coding assistant of their choice. Let's say they're using Kiro. they want to be able to continue the work that AWS Transform has done, take it to Kiro, finish those changes, and then try again. And so fix issues and do it in an iterative format. And we are enabling those kind of functionalities today. There will be a transformation plan with the next steps as a markdown, which you can directly feed to Kiro, complete the job, and then run the transformation again. And finally, one of the things that we had was that it's available in 2 experiences, whether you start in web or whether you use Visual Studio IDE. You can see the work that is happening across both of these together. So now there is no longer the separation of if I'm doing the work in IDE, I cannot see what's happening on the web experience and vice versa. So that it is now one unified workspace for your teams to collaborate together. So those are the functionalities that we have added. But enough about what the potentials are. I want to have one of our customers who have used this service show you how they have used AWS Transform to solve their problems. And that would act as like a guidance for some of the challenges that you yourself may face and how AWS Transform can help you there. I'll invite Srinivas to kind of share those details here. Srinivas?
Thank you, Nitz. So we at Idemia, we service 45 plus DMVs across the country. Any one of you who has a driver's license in the United States, the chances are that we would have touched your life in some or the other form. This particular solution that we took through the transformation process is one of the critical products that we offer as a service. And that's for certifying. As you enter the DMV, you go through a knowledge test and then a skills test, and then you go through the whole process of getting your driver's license. As part of that, this product was built some time back, and the legacy state was a typical monolithic application that we have been deploying for a while with a thick client, a WPF-based application, and then .NET Framework 3.5 with a SQL Server database as the backend. Nothing fancy, but a critical application. As we started embarking on the journey of trying to scale it up across multiple customers and multiple types of users that we had to cater to, we started realizing that there are going to be some significant challenges. These are some of the challenges, not just all-encompassing, that we encountered that we needed some answers for. As we started ramping up, we realized that the technical debt was piling up with outdated infrastructure architecture based on .NET Framework that was no longer scalable and limiting us from being able to containerize and move to the next level. Additionally, we started encountering higher cost of ownership from a performance and the legacy applications that were running on a Windows environment and could not be ported into a Linux setting. And we also started seeing some security challenges that we needed to address. Particularly with the space that we operate in, compliance is a big thing that we need to be very careful about because we deal with PII on a continuous basis. And also making sure that not only we're compliant with the regulatory standards, but we also need to be ahead of all those nation-state actors that we need to worry about. So we needed to think about what we need to do. And it also started as we started scaling up, we started noticing some customer satisfaction issues were starting to creep up. So customers started complaining that, hey, the performance is not at the level that we are looking for or we were hoping for. What can you guys do about that? When we started thinking about, okay, we need to start transforming what we're doing right now. So we realized that from a technical debt perspective, what are we looking at? The manual deployment process was taking longer than what we were hoping for. The incompatibility with the lightweight Linux containers that we needed to address, and also the auto-scaling. We were setting up the environments for the worst case scenario, but not using it on a regular basis. So which meant that the cost of ownership was obviously going through the roof. And the restricted integration for CI/CD pipelines that we wanted to bring to bear. The cloud-native capabilities that the team was hoping to leverage, we were not able to get any of that in place because of the legacy architecture. Additionally, we also started noticing that there were some 32-bit versus 64-bit inefficiencies that we needed to cater to, or we needed to address, and memory management and garbage collection. Those of you who are familiar with .NET applications and who have used the older .NET frameworks, you would have definitely experienced this kind of pain points on a continuous basis. And if you ask me what kept me up at night, there were occasions where I had to jump on calls to figure out what was going on. And our team was not too happy about that. The end of life of Windows 2012 Server also kind of accelerated the process that we needed to transform our application. And also, as I mentioned, the over-provisioning of EC2 instances and then the amount of storage that we had to over-provision. I have my colleague also here who kind of lived that nightmare with me. We kind of started thinking, what can we do, okay? And 99% of the time, we started realizing that majority of the resources were actually sitting idle, and we needed to address that debt. The capacity, higher capacity needed during usage peaks, which were kind of not uniform, but kind of, we saw the ebbs and flows of that we needed to deal with. As we started looking at these problems, we realized that we needed to tackle them sooner rather than later. As I also mentioned, a couple of other things in terms of the security challenges that we encountered, the TLS 1.0 versus TLS 1.3 support, that was limited in terms of what we were having in .NET 3.5, and obsolete code access security versus the modern .NET 8 framework security that was something that we were looking for. The weak authentication schemes that we had to deal with, minimal protection for CSRF, and stack trace being very poor in .NET 3.5 versus .NET 8, and insecure token storage practices that we had to kind of deal with as part of the 3.5 architecture that we had in place. So with that we set some goals for modernizing our application and the service that we were offering to our customers. We started talking to some partners, Cloud Hedge and Amazon. We realized that we need to containerize as quickly as possible, moving it to a lightweight Linux container model. We needed to improve our security posture, bring down the total cost of ownership, and more importantly, be able to go cross-platform, which was limited in .NET 3.5 that we were experiencing. How did we achieve that? We started talking, as I said, to Cloud Hedge and to Amazon, and realized this is the application state, ideal application state that we needed to get to. As you can see, we started getting a little bit more cloud native, which was not the case previously. We needed to host it in a multi-availability zone model, which was not the case previously. Particularly containerizing that and kind of using the ECRs for managing those containers, and then the EKS for to store our containers. And we also, as a part of the journey, we started before the availability of the SQL Server Transform platform, we started kind of migrating some of that into Postgres Aurora SQL. So as we started doing that, we realized that kind of, there's got to be a better way. And that's when we talked to Amazon about the AWS Transform being the right platform for us to take us to the next level. Think of it that each and every area that we're talking about has like kind of a code base that's like, unique to each DMV that we need to deploy. And when we kind of factor in across 45 DMVs, that's not a simple task either for the development team or for the SRE team on our side. So that's when, with this architecture, what we started noticing was that close to 4 times efficiency, as Nitz had already pointed out in his presentation. What we realized is like kind of, the team started seeing that kind of efficiency as we started transforming to the target state. The results that we achieved as part of that were like kind of, the most important thing was for me was to improve the resiliency and the uptime availability. With using EKS containers across multiple availability zones, it has helped us actually to kind of have a better uptime and improved on the performance bottlenecks. As a matter of fact, as we started doing that kind of, we realized that we were running into a little bit of issues on moving it into GovCloud. We successfully kind of overcame that and deployed it into GovCloud, which was a huge step forward for us. The 4 times faster piece, the application transformation, previously the team gave me an estimate of almost like close to per DMV, we were looking at close to 6 months. So overall, to transform the entire application, we're looking at orders of magnitude of like 2 to 3 years. I'm sure every one of you here knows that we don't have that kind of luxury because technology keeps changing and we need to cater to the needs of our customers on a continuous basis. So with AWS Transform, it actually helped us complete the transformation of the application layer in like less than like kind of quarter of that time frame. So that's a huge thing for us because kind of, the longer we sit in the older platform, it not only is increasing my costs, it's also like kind of keeping up the security holes on a continuous basis that we need to deal with. The reduced total cost of ownership, we started realizing that we're going to get about like at least 30% in terms of cost reduction. If we had to provision those extra resources previously, now with the auto-scaling properties that I can kind of set efficiently, we're able to actually recognize that 30% savings in terms of the dollars that we're spending. The modern deployment practices, like being able to kind of go to the CI/CD pipeline efficiently, that was lacking previously. Now we're able to reduce that by 35%, kind of by reaching the time taken is reduced by 35%. And more importantly, security. I'm sure all of you kind of have gone through some sort of a security nightmare as you're kind of building your applications. With .NET 8, we can leverage the newer security features that .NET 8 offers, particularly migrating our application from a 32-bit to 64-bit and be able to kind of take care of all those CVEs that we had to deal with previously proactively using the .NET 8 framework. Kind of, is a huge win for us. So this is a kind of, reaction from our director of software engineering. He had to deal with this nightmare application for years, and this is verbatim what he said. As we kind of leveraged AWS Transform, it helped us speed up the full transformation by 4 times and more efficiently host the software on a Linux versus a Windows server. What does it mean for us from a business standpoint is that now I can actually take this application and kind of go to a true software as a service model, which we could not do previously. Though that's kind of in a nutshell what we have been through as an AWS Transform partner and a Cloud Edge partner. And Raul is going to take us through how he helped us transform our application. Thank you. Plenty of time, yeah.
All right. Let's see how that magic actually happens, how the AWS Transform works. It actually is pretty simple. So it goes through 3 steps. So first is analysis, followed by transformation, and then validation. So as part of analysis, a .NET agent is essentially a deep domain expert, and its intelligence is built on top of Amazon Bedrock models that we have trained. It enables code integration from GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, and a few more other sources wherever your code resides today. The way analysis works is it starts with first identifying the .NET version of the project that you have out there. It determines what are different project types that are there. And then it looks at the code and the dependencies between different projects and between different repositories that you have provided it to analyze. So once the analysis completes, it gives you a pre-transformation analysis report. And using that report, you can look at what are the different things that will be transformed during the whole process. And you can look at the complexity as well for different projects that are out there in your solution. So based on the code base, dependencies, and the business objectives that you state, it delivers you a tailored transformation plan. So that's where you jump into the transformation phase. So this transformation plan, you can actually edit. So it gives you some default plan. You can add on top of it what you want to do, literally in plain English language. It's LLM behind the scene, which understands what needs to be done, and it transforms the code for you. The transformation can handle different project types. It can handle your WCF projects, web API projects, console applications, test projects, and it basically offers you to put some repository level configuration, and you can provide third-party packages dependency as well for the whole transformation to work and complete eventually. So in this transformation process, it first transforms the code. It tries to build it. If it doesn't build, it tries to fix it. And that keeps on happening over and over again in a loop behind the scene till you have a project where it cannot no more do any other thing out there using AI at that moment. So once that transformation completes, it generates a transformation report for you. So in that transformation report, it shows you what all things have been transformed, why things have been transformed. And it gives you another report, which is nextsteps.md, basically a markdown file, which tells you what's actually not transformed. And it gives you certain steps on how you can, further transform it. Or another thing that you can do is you can again run the whole transformation based on the knowledge that you have right now. Let's say, some dependency injection failed that you have implemented. Next time when you are again running the transform, in your transformation steps, you can add a custom step out there to run a dependency injection in a certain way. So that this time, that part of the project is also transformed. And you can keep doing that over and over again, however many times you want to do. So once the transformation completes, it basically generates a new branch where all the code is, and you can merge it into your production branch. So as part of that transformation, when it ends, it generates all that reports. The next step of this journey is validation. So AWS Transform, it automatically runs your unit tests as well. And it tells you, based on those unit tests as well, how much is succeeded, what's failed, and it tries to fix that as well as part of your transformation plan itself, or whatever it can. It also generates Linux readiness report for you, which you can review and see if there are further changes needed in the code at that time. So that is another thing that you can validate. It generates a natural language transformation summary for you, which is again, a very detailed summary of all the changes that are there, all the build issues that it has identified, for you to review, and then again, you can further optimize. So once the transformation completes, it also generates an email for you. So what basically that means is, let's say you start a transformation and it tells you it's going to take 3 hours. Let's say you don't have to sit in front of your system. You can leave it. Once you get the email, you can work on it. So it basically is headless. So behind the scene transformation happens. You don't have to keep your screen open or keep the project open. It happens for you. And you can load that transformation once you get that email. Let's quickly look at a demo out there for the same. So we have 2 experiences here. So first experience is actually in the console, and in the web console, when you start AWS Transform, you can create a job there for transformation. And the way to create a job, obviously, you can click on Create Job, but then at the same time, you can chat with AWS Transform to create some of these jobs for you. So here, you can either chat with it, or you can click on the guided experience. So let's select Windows Modernization, because .NET is part of that, and then you select .NET Transformation. So once you select what kind of job it is, you need to supply it the code. How would you do that? So either you can upload it through an S3 bucket, or you can use AWS code connections. So the way AWS code connection works is there's a separate, on AWS console itself, you can go and configure your GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket. You can supply the credentials there. It is going to integrate there. And here in the web console, you provide details about that connector. So once that connector is configured, AWS Transform is able to pull all different repositories that are out there in your GitHub or GitLab, whichever source code repository you're using. So all these repositories are pulled, and then you can select the specific repositories that you want to modernize. The way to do it is, let's say I want to modernize this one, Bob's Used Bookstore, and then I know there's a dependent repository API test there. So I would select both those repositories, so that when transformation happens, it is able to find those correlations between repositories and is able to transform the whole code base better. So once you have supplied these repositories, there is another kind of dependency, which is NuGet packages. So these NuGet packages, you can either supply those private NuGet packages through Azure Artifact Store, or you can actually upload these packages through the web console itself. So this is one of the most requested features that we had when we had our product in beta, where a lot of customers, they had these private NuGet packages, and they wanted to ensure when they're transforming, those dependencies are resolved, and now we are able to do that. So once you have done that, you can review all the dependent repositories are configured correctly. You can ensure all the dependent packages are configured correctly, and then you can approve and start that transformation. So when the transformation starts, it generates a lot of logs for you, and you can see all of that. It is pretty verbose and shows you all the things that it is doing. You can, again, you have an option to sit there, or you can, close it and come back and start working on the transformation again. So here, when I was doing this transformation, here you can see one of the projects succeeded and one of the projects failed. So the repositories which is succeeded, it shows what all is succeeded, and then whatever is failed, you can actually talk to the console itself in natural language, and it can tell you what all things you can do. It also generates a next steps markdown file for you, which will have all that information for you, which you can, again use and again run the transformation, or fix a few things and run that transformation. Or you can use, if AWS Transform is not able to transform after a certain point, you can use other code companions like Kiro to continue the work of transformation and complete it. So this was our web console experience. We have another experience which is in the IDE, Visual Studio IDE. So as a .NET developer, this is the default IDE that all .NET developers use. And you can install AWS Toolkit with Visual Studio 2022 or Visual Studio 2026, and you will get option to transform there. So here, I'm starting with a project out there, which is on .NET Framework 4.8, and I have installed AWS Toolkit out there. So before I can start the transformation, I need to configure AWS Toolkit for AWS Transform to work. So for that, I can again go in and the way I had set it up with web earlier using IAM Identity Center. Same thing you need to do here. You basically give it Identity Center credentials. It is all set up, and then you can start the transformation. To start the transformation, you can either port a solution or you can port a project. So you can right-click on your solution, let's say, and then you just say, start the transform. So when you do that, it basically gives you two options here. So you can see the workspace here, and the second option that you see here is what's the version you want to get to. So currently we support .NET 8. We also support .NET 10. We support .NET Standard as well as the target framework. So how does Workspace help? So these workspaces that are out there, let's say you have a team of developers out there, and they all eventually want to work on certain thing in the transform process. So every transformation job that runs, it runs in a workspace, and that workspace can be shared with multiple people, and multiple people can then work on that transformation. So again, when the transformation starts, it gives you, it starts with analysis, and it analyzes everything. And at the end of analysis, it generates an assessment report. So you can, again, it's the same kind of report that you saw earlier with the web. So you can look at this report on complexity of this transformation. A lot of times, it helps with estimation, like when you're estimating, how much time it's going to take to eventually, do the rest of the work that will be left. So it's always helpful to look at all this initial assessment report that is out there. And once your transformation is complete, it also generates a report for you, which is the whole transformation report on what has changed in your transformation, why it has changed in your transformation. And it also generates a next step file for you, which contains all the things about if something has failed, what are the steps that you can take to fix them, or it might have certain things where it might not be able to suggest you what you need to change, but then you still need to take some action. So you can analyze them, and then again, change your transformation plan, run that transformation again, and you can keep on doing that incrementally. So once you have completed the whole transformation, at that time, all the files that are out there, you can start merging. You can either look at them one by one, compare them, and then pull them onto your system. You can click on Save Changes for a particular file, and it will basically merge out there. Or you can select everything, select all, and do a single merge. Easier option, but then you can still review each and every file that is out there and what is changing. And at the end of the transformation, you can see a newer framework. That's our goal. With that, let's move to and see the full stack Windows transformation, the new features that we have released, how they work. I'll invite PM for the product. Do that.
Okay. Thank you, Rahul, and as well as Srinivas for that walkthrough. So what we have seen is now for the .NET side, right? Like, so the .NET transformation, like, for how we are moving customers from .NET Framework to .NET 8 or .NET 10. Now, if you look at it from a customer objective point of view, right? Like, if you want to migrate your legacy applications, think of it as a 3-layered cake. We are now supporting web forms to Blazor from the UI framework point of view. We are supporting from the middle tier for .NET Framework to .NET 8. But that alone doesn't help them complete the whole story. So what we have launched today in GA is a full stack modernization agent. So now we are able to handle .NET Framework to cross-platform, web forms to Blazor, but more importantly now, we are supporting, if you have SQL Server, we are using the same agentic experience to actually transform them into Aurora Postgres SQL Server as well. So the main advantage of this is that like customers who have all of these legacy applications, they can use the same mechanisms they are used to for .NET to start modernizing their SQL servers as well. And after that, once you have transformed your entire application stack, we are supporting deploying those into a sandbox environment so you can validate the whole thing, right? Like, and this is one of the big pieces of feedback that we have gotten from customers is, I want to be able to try, take this application, test it that it's working fine. And now that we have full stack, a capability of transformation, you can actually put it in an environment and test the functionality. This is going to help accelerate customers modernizing into the newer .NET 8, .NET 10 kind of a world. And one final piece is that this whole service is completely free for you to use, right? Like this whole experience with AWS Transform for the Windows ecosystem is free to use today. And so yeah, we are definitely looking forward to seeing more use cases that's coming, you can build and how we can assist you on this process. So the same sequence that we had for .NET, right? Like we have exactly a similar flow here as well. We are going to do an analysis, and then we are going to be identifying the database schemas, the tables, the views, and the indexes that you have, and then we are going to start the migrating, those schemas and all the database-related items. But more importantly, we are going to also make corresponding changes in the application code as well. So that means now you do not actually have to go make changes to the application. So we identify the dependencies between your .NET applications and your SQL Server, and as we migrate to Postgres target, we will make the corresponding changes in your application code. So you get a fully transformed stack as part of this, and then we'll help you validate and deploy in a new environment. So this is the functionality we launched today, and I want to make sure that all of you are able to at least get a sneak peek at this. There is a session that we are hosting tomorrow at 1:30, and we have that information on this in the next slide. And we would love to have you there and understand a little bit more and see what you can build and take it from here. Okay, yeah. And the interactive demo which Rahul showed, you can actually get it from that QR code, and more you can see from our website. And the session that we are talking about tomorrow, the full stack SQL modernization, there is a builder session that you can actually get it. And also there is a, a breakout session where we would be talking about this as well. Right? With that, I'm just cannot wait for you to test it and give your feedback and where you would love to take this product next. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for your time and your patience, and I appreciate it. Thank you.